Here's your wrestling news for February 27th, 2023, and we're kicking off with WrestleMania 39 as WWE has a lot of big plans going into this year's show, with the biggest match being the main event between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Lower down on the card, Seth Rollins is looking for payback on Logan Paul, who has been a thorn in his side for months, but these matches weren't the plan for either Rhodes or Rollins. According to Fightful Select, the original plan was for Cody Rhodes to take on Seth or Drew McIntyre for a world championship, leaving Reigns free to face his cousin The Rock in Hollywood. It was added that at the time the reports of these matches came out, it was on the card that 2 world title matches were going to happen at WrestleMania 39, but that is also not the case now. It was noted that Rhodes was always set to win the Royal Rumble as one would expect, but when the tag team of Drew McIntyre and Sheamus took off, plans started to change. By the time the Paul-Rollins feud began at Royal Rumble, WWE had nixed the idea of a second title match, and the final nail in the coffin for these plans was when The Rock told WWE he wouldn't be competing this year. Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes, and Seth Rollins are all expected to compete at this year's WrestleMania, but it won't be against each other, and it remains to be seen how WWE pulls off the plans that are in place after so many changes. But which would you have preferred? The nixed plans or the matches we're going to see this April? Sound off in the comments. For Roman Reigns, this will be his 7th WrestleMania main event, but the head of the table has had more on his plate than the American Nightmare. Since the Royal Rumble, the Bloodline has been crumbling, as Sami Zayn's exit from the group also saw the departure of Jey Uso in January. At Elimination Chamber, Jey tried to prevent Reigns from using a steel chair, and it was during this week's Smackdown that Jey refused to help his brother Jimmy during a brawl with Zayn. At a recent WWE Live event, the show saw the Usos and Solo Sikoa face Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, and Sheamus, and Jey continued to literally distance himself from his relatives. While Jimmy and Solo entered the match together, Jey had a separate entrance from the Bloodline members through the crowd, and there were clear tensions between the brothers, who were still the tag team champions throughout the match. These tensions didn't prevent Jey, Jimmy, and Sikoa getting the win over their formidable opponents, but even in their victory, it's more apparent than ever that the Usos are not on the same page. It was only a few months ago that fans were certain that Brock Lesnar would be facing Gunther at WrestleMania, but that sure isn't what's going to be happening this April. In the months since reports of that match came out, there had been speculation that Lesnar would be taking on either Bobby Lashley or Bray Wyatt this April, but instead it now appears he'll be facing Omos instead. To the surprise of absolutely no one, fans have dragged the decision for Lesnar to face Omos, who is still green in the ring, but this is a match Brock could have said no to. While speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer noted that Brock Lesnar could have easily rejected the match if he wanted to, given the considerable sway he has backstage. Meltzer said that while Brock could not have hated the match as much as everyone else, he also doubts that this is a match Lesnar requested, something the Beast also has the power to do. To be clear, Lesnar hasn't accepted the match just yet, but will respond to Omos' challenge on this week's Raw. And are you expecting a last-minute swerve? Or will Brock vs. Omos indeed happen at WrestleMania 39? Often at a WWE Live event, fans may see a superstar from NXT have a match as the company's test to see how they fare outside of the performance center they're used to working in. In a WWE show in Champaign, Illinois, Zoe Stark was given her moment to shine outside of NXT, but the choice of match she competed in angered some fans. The 29-year-old superstar was one of 4 women in a Smackdown women's title match that also included the champion Charlotte Flair, Liv Morgan, and Sonya Deville, and many online felt putting Stark in the match was unfair. On Twitter, fans claimed that Triple H was being biased by giving an NXT star such a prominent spot over someone who's already on the main roster, and one fan said that Stark should just be released. Not everyone was so negative, as some praised Stark's in-ring work, but feel like she needs to find a better character before her transition to the main roster. Stark lasted over 26 minutes in this year's Women's Royal Rumble and has competed a handful of times on WWE Main Event. And while there have been talks of a call-up, some fans think it's all a bit too much too soon for the NXT star. Speaking of NXT, Cameron Grimes' time with the promotion has finished, and it's been reported that WWE are waiting on the right creative idea for his main roster call-up. We don't know when that'll be, but what we do know is that Grimes was back in action recently as he competed in a dark match ahead of last Friday's Smackdown, earning a victory over Ashanti the Adonis. Grimes has been on the main roster before and defeated Akira Tozawa on a WWE main event last October, but time will tell when we'll see his fully fledged call-up to either Raw or Smackdown. Now, it's safe to say that Hulk Hogan is one of, if not the biggest star in wrestling, and has had multiple stints as part of the WWE. After leaving WWE in 1993, Hogan would make a series of returns over the years, and not everyone would be happy to see him back. Speaking on his Grilling JR podcast, Jim Ross explained that whenever Hogan returned, the superstars had to be assured it was a good thing and suspected that some were afraid of the star power of the Hulkster. Well, a lot of top guys were not interested in it because they knew that it was going to create competition for that spot or those spots. There are not enough spots to go around to cover everybody's bases it needs and so forth. I remember telling talent, why are you worried about it? He's the older guy with multiple back surgeries. He's very limited on what he can do physically. So I don't understand your angst. I don't understand your paranoia. It sounds like you're worried about competition, right? Hogan's various returns would often see him defeat the superstars of the day, including Triple H in 2002, Shawn Michaels in 2005, and Randy Orton the following year. Even to this day, Hogan has said he hopes to have one more match in WWE as he doesn't want the last match of his career to have happened in Impact, and God help the unlucky superstar who may have to share the ring with the Hulkster. Back to the present, as it was just last weekend, the Wrestling Observer newsletter shared their annual awards, with AEW capturing several of them. If you check AEW's Twitter account, you'll see posts celebrating the likes of Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, MJF, and Tony Khan for their awards, but not everyone was praised. As several fans pointed out, FTR won the Tag Team of the Year, but AEW opted not to congratulate the popular tag team. Not only that, but the AEW went out of their way to snub FTR, as while they praised the Briscoes for being part of the feud of the year, there was no mention to FTR, who were part of that feud. This snubbing did not go unnoticed by FTR's Dax Harwood, who fired back, asking if it was the month of April. April is reportedly the month that FTR's deal with AEW will expire, and with snubbing like this, it certainly appears that the two sides will be parting ways soon enough. More from AEW as Melo has proven herself in the ring and competed in one of the promotion's goriest matches just last month. On the January 13th edition of Rampage, Melo and Anna Jay teamed to face Willow Nightingale and Ruby Soho in a street fight and showed an amount of blood and violence that shocked fans. That match saw several weapons be used, including the hardcore wrestling staple of thumbtacks, and when speaking to Elite POV, Ty's husband Sammy Guevara said that the tacks were more difficult to remove than you'd think. We had to rush after the street fight straight to the airport because we had a red eye. On the flight, Ty's like, oh, my braids are so tight, it feels like something is stabbing me. Then she's trying to take out her braids, and then she takes out a thumbtack out of her head. It was added that Melo had a really bad headache after the match, but chalked it up to the effects of what she'd put her body through, and had never suspected that a thumbtack had remained lodged in her scalp. Despite this, the Brazilian wrestler said she absolutely loved the match and would love to do more street fights like this. And would you like to see this? Or are such violent matches unnecessary in AEW these days? This April, John Cena will compete for the first time in months when he locks horns with Austin Theory at WrestleMania 39. Given his significant star power, Cena could have picked any opponent he wanted, from old foes like Brock Lesnar to legends like his now former nemesis Edge, so why exactly did he pick the 25-year-old Theory? On his To Be the Man podcast, fellow 16-time world champion Ric Flair gave an answer, saying that Cena choosing to wrestle Theory automatically elevates the reigning US champion. John, according to Rick, has come to the realization that his wrestling career is not about John Cena anymore, but about what he can do for the company which gave him so much in his career. It was WWE that helped Cena become a megastar in and out of wrestling, and it's unlikely that John's career in Hollywood would have taken off had he not been established on TV in the squared circle. While a match between the two has yet to be confirmed, WWE are certainly teasing Cena vs. Theory this April, and no matter the result, being in the ring with John at a WrestleMania will do wonders for the career of our reigning US champion. And we're ending today with WWE, and if you're a fan at a live event, you may be lucky and get a high five from a superstar, or even luckier still and get a selfie with a member of the roster. As part of his feud with Austin Theory in recent months, Seth Rollins has become one of the top babyfaces on Raw, perhaps second only to Cody Rhodes, and he gave a young fan an extra special memory at a recent event. At the house show in Champaign, Illinois, Rollins faced off against Theory, and when Seth caught Theory's arms behind him, Rollins asked a young fan at ringside to lay in on the US champion. The delighted young fan did just that, giving Theory a slight jab that the champion sold, and Seth was happy to celebrate with the kid. Despite getting help from the young fan, Austin Theory was able to successfully retain his US title against Seth Rollins, but regardless of the result, this match was a wonderful experience for that fan that they will never forget.